Alrighty, this is take 2 of my recording. Recording on my phone does not seem to let me save the recording after the fact if I'm in a Discord call, so I'll have to switch over to just video once the actual match starts. But we're getting into pick ban of the first game of the finals of the Convallaria Invitational between KWB Kinbum and Shadowmere. Two players who fought their way through both the qualifier and the main event, going 4-0, both of them in the qualifier, and then winning all three of their rounds to make it to the finals in the main event here. We do see Kinbum wins the die roll for game 1, so has the first choice of, either pick ban or map choice, and chooses pick ban and to pick and ban first. Shadowmere having the remaining choice and chooses Scorching Hills on the left side. Scorching Hills, the original PvP map, the small map, and very likely going to try to throw his opponent off here with this map pick. So now that the map has been chosen, we will see them get into the actual pick ban. We see Kinbum has first ban here and chooses to ban Inanna. Now I expect that Shadowmere will be looking to take speed control and try to get something off on turn 1 here. Needs to ban Tiger, lest Kinbum picks him, given that they have the first choice. Now, Kinbum's ban of Inanna, I don't think is necessarily going to be what Shadowmere is threatening, but could potentially allow turn 1 engages from Shadowmere, so it still makes sense as a ban here. Shadowmere making me work for it. So I am going to go like this. Kinbum, Shadowmere. It is early in the day here, so just waking up, getting into this. Left side is Shadowmere, and the map is Scorching Hills. Scorching Hills. I can spell, sorry. Here we go. So now Kinbum does have a first pick here. So we'll see what they opt to pick. If I would guess, their best picks are SP Rawia, Tristan, anyone with high speed and high engage. So Estra is a bit too slow, but has fairly good engage range. We should see prio on characters like Gloria, potentially Butterfly. We might even see a Leonide come out here because it's Scorching Hills. Pamina has quite good speed. It's threatening unit. Luvada can definitely Luvada plus any unit with Roaring Flint is super impactful because we see Luvada's teleport skill is not banned for this event. Looks like Kinbum is preparing their pick here. SP Rawi, yep, makes complete sense. Is the fastest acting unit with her passive outside of Xavier. and has engage range to potentially engage on turn 1. Probably needs a movement buff from Gloria, but I haven't counted the exact tiles for this map. It's quite tight, so we could potentially also see prio on units like Convallaria and Xavier, just for the speed control that they offer. Both uniquely in this event, both players will have access to changing their gear after pick ban and before we get into the battle. So definitely an option to post pick ban be looking for lines with Skulls of August. It's not oppressive in the same way that it was with open free mode, because you actually have counterplay in pick ban. But we see Pamina and Coco picked here for Shadowmere. Pamina makes sense to me. The Coco, I think, is a bit of a defensive play. Obviously, she offers speed on her own speed and access to potentially August scrolling someone. Pamina with the speed passive will be faster than Coco. But based on these first two picks, I don't necessarily expect that Shadowmere would be looking to go in on turn 1. It's not impossible still. You could see a Layla pick or a Butterfly pick, and potentially swapping the Pamina forward with Move Up and like Snow Lotus from Coco, and then she might be able to jump in on turn 1. Things are a little unusual on this map. This should be the smallest map. Obviously the smallest map in terms of overall size, but in terms of engage range, it is probably competing with Ruined Frontline. So hard to say there, but definitely some of these initial pick bans do preclude either player from necessarily easily cheesing their opponent, given the size of the map here. So we will see what they are able to cook, and we might get a more traditional battle. It will still probably be over in a small amount of rounds because of the size of the map, but we may not see a turn 1 battle end as can happen on this map if either player is not prepared or set up for it. So we will see. That being said, Kinbum does have SP Rawia, who I do think is the most likely character to be able to easily engage on turn 1. So we'll see if they opt to pick up units like Gloria, units like Layla or Nona will, or even Talion, I guess. But units that can just buff the Rawi before she goes in. I'm trying to think. With move 1, should she be able to engage on turn 1? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1. She should be able to reach, yeah. With a movement 1 buff, she should be able to go in on turn 1. I believe that it is 1, 2. I think it's 11 tiles between the closest starting positions. It should be 2 tiles to the box, and then the box, and then 2 tiles to the tarot, and then the tarot. So 6 total, and then another 5. I think it's 11 tiles, if I'm remembering my phone. remembering the map correctly. But yeah, both players definitely have to be very careful here in pick ban, as it will likely decide the outcome here. But we definitely see them taking their time, which they are completely within their rights to do. We don't have a timer on this new pick ban, so you'll have to forgive the pace, but both players fought hard to get here and definitely want to take this title home, so we see Shadowmere prompting his opponent. He's thinking hard. Dun, dun, dun. The little innocuous chicken. Using his brain power. If he wants to go in here, I think probably a Buffer and Gloria are good picks here. If you're just looking for a more traditional battle, you could see units like Convallaria, you could see units like Estra, Layla. There's lots of picks here. Homa, if you want to go on turn 2. Yeah, definitely plenty of picks here that are available, but if you're looking to go on turn 1, then it's a little different. Leonide would be super interesting. Convallaria, Agata, okay. So, very likely in that case, not going to go on turn 1. Convallaria. Agata. So then Shadowmere will have his final pick of the first phase, and then we'll get to ban a unit. Kinbum will then ban a unit, and Shadowmere will have the first pick after the ban phase. What do I think Shadowmere is going to pick here? It's a little unusual with Convallaria. Agata, yeah, both players not really looking to cheese here, but Shadowmere picked this map, so more likely when a player picks an unusual map that they have a plan. Obviously that can be foiled in pick ban itself if the units that you're looking for aren't available to you, especially with this unique draft phase where players cannot pick the same units that their opponent has picked. But we'll see. I think this third pick will reveal to us whether there is something cheesy in store for Shadowmere. I think this is the window of opportunity for Shadowmere to do something. Okay, goes for Layla. Could be a defensive pick into this Rawia. Could also be a potential aggressive engage with a teleport forward on this tiny map. So if that's the case, then we will likely see Pamina not having her speed up. Given this pick, these first 3 picks from Kinbum, I think it is indicative that they are not going for a turn 1 rush with Rawia. So I think you're safer on the side of Shadowmere to potentially look for a turn 1 engage, because even though your units may be slower, your opponent is not sort of indicating with their pick ban that they're planning on going in first. So we will definitely see. This Pamina also does not currently have any cleanse threats on the opposing side. Yeah, so Kinbum's team quite threatened by a Pamina engage if Shadowmere is able to get it off. So it is Shadowmere's ban. Might just be thinking. Excuse me. Sleepy Shadowmere. Yeah, again, it is fairly early. These matches usually played a bit later in the day, so just looking at these teams here. What am I expecting? I do think a movement buff for the Pamina could be quite threatening. So, yeah, still could potentially threaten a turn 1. If you're Shadowmere, if you're able to get out Gloria or Homa, is probably what I would expect to see. In terms of bans, goes for a ban Astra, which I think makes complete sense with the first 3 picks that you see from your opponent here, is not indicating that they want to do a rush, but just want to pick really solid singular units and play a more fair game. So units like Agatha, Convallaria, Ravia, and Shadowmere's Astra ban here are all very good at taking value trades, taking kills, and potentially multiple kills, while being difficult to kill on their own, right? So I think Astra is a very reasonable ban here. I would expect Shadowmere to potentially pick up a movement buffer with their 4th pick. Kinbum banning August, which makes a lot of sense. It is a signature Shadowmere pick, and especially good on a map like this, which is so small. Very easily able to go in on turn 1 if he has a movement buff. I think he can go in on turn 1 without a movement buff also, but it's kind of suspect. You might only be able to clip 1 or 2 units. But August, a good ban, I think, from Kinbum here. Does leave Shadowmere kind of all in on this Pamina plan, whether it's turn 1 or not. What else might he be looking to pick? I'm going to guess Homa or Gloria here, but we will see what Shadowmere is looking for. Did I read it correctly? I did, okay. What do I think Kinbum will look for? Could use a healer. Doesn't necessarily need one on this map, but yeah, okay. Shadowmere picks Homa. I think that does indicate to me, at least, that it's potentially looking to go in on turn 1. So Kinbum will be able to respond with 2 picks here. I think that Simona is interesting. I think any unit with a cleanse is interesting. Yeah, Homa is a good pick here, also just as a denial to the cleanse. Obviously, Homa works quite well with Kinbum's units, but also could potentially cleanse off a taunt from the Pamina. I think we will likely see SP Safia from Kinbum here. Assault Order quite good with, incredibly good with SP Ravia, and also very good with Agatha. Is able to cleanse, sort of with her skills, as long as she has Sig equipped, but is not like the best cleanser. So definitely expect to see an SP Saf here. What else would we see? Maybe a Luvada. I could see Shadowmere picking up a Luvada on pick 5, potentially. Also has Coco as an energy battery here for the Layla, but doesn't have great energy battery. So maybe a Gloria for either player here. SP Saf. Yeah, if Kinbum didn't pick SP Saf, I do think Shadowmere might pick it, but probably the units that both players are looking at are SP Saf, maybe Gloria. Kavare kind of makes it bad to pick Momo here. But she's fairly good on this map in terms of being able to push and pull. We could see a Conve. I don't know that we've ever seen a Conve on Scorching Hills, but there are lots of places for him to push and pull, so or push rather. It is a very small map, so if either player wanted to get really creative, a Conve is open. I do not expect that we'll see a Conve, but I think he could be very threatening. But yeah, someone is also good on this map. Yeah, Simona, Gloria, SP Saf are most likely the priors here. I'm trying to remember all the units in the game. I don't want to tab out here, but what else would be useful? Yeah. I think I get a notification if either player picks, so we're going. We're counting on it. I'll go over to the wiki. Oh, of course, Luvada. Flavia is disabled for this event. Wait, Tristan hasn't been pick banned. Hello? How did I forget about this unit? I totally forgot that Tristan even existed, because usually it's such a high prio pick for everyone, so has not been picked or banned. So as long as both players have not forgotten about her, she is a very high prio pick for sure. But yeah, I would say that those are probably the most likely. Karis would actually be a reasonable pickup here if you're Kinbum as a counter to this Pamina, but may not be able to get off her shield in time if Shadowmere opts to go in on turn 1. I think Tristan, how has Tristan not been picked yet? What in the heck? So yeah, I think Kinbum's best 2 picks are maybe SP Saf and Tristan. Tristan can really eat into this Layla. And I think with a Tristan pick, you're probably looking pretty good. I'm not sure if our players here just kind of forgot about Tristan or potentially don't have Tristan. It's not impossible. Tristan and Saf OG. Interesting. So we do see a Saf come out here, but it is not the Saf that I was expecting. I do, if I may commentate, think that is a mistake. Between the two Safs, I think that I think that Saf SP is very good for this team. Like, you get to one-shot anybody with Rabia or Agatha. You get kill pressure on your whole team with the buffs and defensive buffs. You get cleanse for this potential Pamina engage. But I guess the OG Saf is to kill Pamina. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure the exact thinking here, but we will see if Kinbum is able to find something with those picks. I think Tristan is very good into Shadowmere's team. Negates a lot of this Layla pressure. And we'll see what Shadowmere wants to pick on 5. If he's really crazy, I think Leonide would be insane. I think that you could get a kill with Layla swap forward, Homa the Leonide, Roaring Flint, and Wheel of Fortune, plus Charge Stance. I think that you could just completely throw your opponent off, and it would probably win you the game. I don't know that Shadowmere has been playing PvP since the OG days of Scorching Hills and Leonide turn 1 cheeses, but I do think it would probably be game winning if he sees the line. Might also just not have Leonide. It's a pretty niche unit outside of the early days of PvP and pre tarot ban. So would you even have enough engage range? So you swap Leonide forward, you get 3 tiles, +2 movement, 7 total. Yeah, you might also not be able to engage without tarot. It would be really close, but +2. Yeah, I think it would be super close. And dependent on a wheel proc. Like, if you get the wheel proc or not. This is gonna depend on whether you kill a lot of these units. Shadowmere typing. Oh. Yeah, so I'll plan on just doing video recording for the matches, unfortunately. And then I'll come back and do the cast over for the pick ban phase. I wish I could do otherwise, but I cannot. We will hopefully soon have a functioning computer and none of the song and dance that I have to do to even record some of the matches will have to be done anymore. But for now, I make do. I will have to figure out a way to edit these clips together, but does not need to be sorted right now. What do I think he's gonna pick? It's a good question. I could say a Karis. Does really help against this Tristan. I could see your own SP Saf. Seems pretty good with your Pamina engage. If you're going crazy mode, I could see a Combe or Leonide. For sure. Simona, I think, is a fairly potent pick on this map, as always. Don't currently have any good hard CC outside of Pamina for the Tristan. Coco cannot sleep her. Pick Xavier. What? That is so surprising to me. I would have thought he gave up speed control. But here we go. This is our pick band for game 1 on Scorching Hills. And yeah, I'm going to swap over to just the video recording for the battle, and then we'll come back after. Okay? All right, we see Kinbum able to pick up game 1 against Shadowmere, countering Shadowmere's plan. Obviously, Shadowmere made a bit of a mistake on the teleport for the Pamina going in. Definitely made a big difference in the outcome of the game there. But as we move into game 2, Shadowmere still has an opportunity to take this series back. So we'll see what the adaptation is here. Opting to choose Harbor instead of Scorching Hills. It happens. We have all been there, my friend. We have all been there. Definitely in a big way. Series like this are about how you can adapt to your mistakes and bounce back. So hopefully Shadowmere are able to pick up game 2 and we can make this a good series going to game 3. But Kinbum in a good position here, able to take game 1 and just needs to take one more game to take the series. Oh, I should copy paste this for the players. Yoinkies. Edit. Banter. KWB. Kinbum. Oh, that's just... I really failed there. Ban 1. SP. Robbie. Player 2. Shadowmere. Left side. Shadowmere. Map. Harbor. They're too quick. They're too fast. All right. As we get into game 2 here, we see a bit of an adaptation with pick ban for both players. Obviously, the map itself is different, but we do see some slightly different choices here. And Nana going over the side of Kinbum. And Shadowmere going to pick up Tristan and Agatha. Inanna, obviously an incredibly potent threat. I do expect Kinbum might pick up Estra here as probably the last OP DPS, so to speak, to pair up with Inanna. Might go Estra Homa. It's a pretty potent combo. But could pick up any number of units as well here. Pamina, Layla obviously not quite great into Tristan, but we can also see Convallaria as a counter pick is reasonable. I do think if you pick Estra here, you do need to be worried about a Layla pick from Shadowmere in response. So it might not be a bad idea to go Estra Layla instead of Estra Homa, just to deny that counter pick from Shadowmere. But Homa also a good pickup for Shadowmere. I think not as threatening as Layla, so you have to decide probably Pamina Estra, okay? Decide where the threat lies. Opts for Pamina Estra. Okay. Pamina's a fairly good pick into Layla. Can often deny her picks Coco, okay? I was really expecting a Layla here, but goes for Coco. Just wants to get the Pamina counter pick here. which does make sense, but potentially sees Pamina as more threatening than Astra, which is fair. I think if Pamina with an Anana Act again gets on your team, it can just be game winning if you don't have a way to cleanse. And Coco kind of stops that in its tracks. So, Shadowmere does have first pick here in the second phase. So, I do still think Layla's a great pick for him. I would potentially expect Kinbum to ban it. And it's a little tricky here if you're Shadowmere, because I think Kinbum would like to pick up something like a Homa here. And if you ban the Homa as Shadowmere, then Kinbum can ban Layla. But if you don't ban Homa, then he can... If you don't ban Homa and he bans your Layla, then you can pick Homa. So there's a little bit of a cat and mouse of whatever doesn't get picked and banned, you kind of leave open for yourself. But if you don't ban Homa as Shadowmere and he doesn't ban Layla, then if you pick Layla, then he gets to pick Homa. So, you're kind of playing. Your band, Shadowmere. I think Shadowmere knows this. So I'm actually not going to remind them. I think they're just thinking. Shadowmere's not the kind of player to generally be unaware of details, so I think they are aware this is their ban. But Kinbum might remind them. I do think Shadowmere knows. So yeah, definitely a tricky situation. I think if you're Shadowmere, you want to pick Layla. I think it's pretty good considering you have Coco. Oh no, Shadowmere did forget. I was giving them all the credit, but it happens. It's a brand new format. It can definitely get a little confusing, so not a problem if either player forgets. Yeah, I think you want Layla here, but how do you pick up the Layla? Yeah, I think your safest ban is probably ban Homa. Especially given the Anana, you really want to avoid a Homa plus threat, especially Estra. Bans Kavari. Okay. Act again, but yeah, Kavari is also not a bad ban here because you force your opponent to say, okay, I'm going to ban the Layla that you want to pick up, or the Homa, potentially, and you get to pick the other unit. So I don't think that this Kavari is bad at all. Kavari, one of the units definitely that threatens Tristan with a stun, and threatens Layla with killing her. So I do like this Kavari ban. I would expect Kinbum to ban Layla here, especially post Kavari. Like, Homa is good for Shadowmere here, but I don't think it's like as backbreaking as it would be on Kinbum's team. And yeah, I mean, I think you'd rather your opponent not get Layla than give them Homa. Between those two choices, I think that is preferred. Like, yes, if you give them Layla, you're going to pick up Homa, but I do not think that is worth it when one of your primary threats here is Estra. But we will see. We will see. Both players have made it deep into this tournament. Clearly, lots of strategy and planning has gone into their preparations, so I would not be surprised if I am surprised by one of these pick and ban phases, as I have been. What else could we potentially see here? Gloria is still on the table. I don't necessarily think that she is super potent. Unlikely that we're going to be looking at any game one, or turn one, rather. Karis is still an option to counter a Pamina. We do have Levada on the table. Levada's not great with these units. SP Saf obviously is still a really potent unit. I don't necessarily expect to see it from either player based on the game one, but we will see. So Kinbum does opt to ban Homa here, and I do expect that Shadowmere will respond to the Layla pick. Doesn't have a lot of Layla counters left. I mean, Pamina is okay into Layla. She's not terrible, but you have Coco, so it's like, it's pretty hard to guarantee that your taunt is actually going to go off here. And Agatha can probably kill this Pamina. So I do expect Shadowmere to pick Layla. Pigs Gloria. Me, surprised face. Okay. Now, if you're Kinbum, do you pick Layla? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's good enough. I mean, it's good enough maybe if you're trying for a teleport forward. Like, you can teleport forward and turn one with the Layla teleport. You would go, just teleport Estra and Nana Pamina forward, and then you get to choose to act again, either of them. It's kind of challenging without a speed buff, but you potentially just like chariot the Pamina if you want to do the Pamina. Speed-wise, a booked Pamina would go before Shadowmere's whole team. Also, just potentially a speed passive Pamina would. So there's a lot of, a lot of intricacy here in the pick ban and how this game is going to play out. So Kinbum does have 2 picks here. What do I think that they're going to go for? I mean, I do think Layla is still really good for Shadowmere, but picking Gloria over Layla on 4 does indicate dropping Layla prio. So I don't necessarily think if you're Kinbum that you need to like counterpick this Layla and say that you're like trying to stop your opponent from having it. So what do we think? I mean, SP Saf to help this Estra is reasonable. Simona's fine. Karis is fine. We did see Prio on OG Saf in game 1. So we could see an OG Saf pickup here. Also, obviously important to note that all players don't have access to all units. So some of these units that I might expect priority to be existing on for some of these players, they might be units that they don't have built up or that they don't favor. So more important, I think, that they play with units that are comfort picks for them than like a unit that on paper looks good in the situation. So we'll see what Kinbum opts to go for here. I'm not super sure. I don't have any, I think, great predictions here. There are a number of units that I think could be picked, but yeah, I think given how this pick ban has gone, there's not any units that I'm expecting either player to slam as a great pick. I mean, Kara's still open for Shadowmere if you really want to double down on the Pamina counter, but I think unless we see like a Luvada or another like threatening magic DPS, I don't know that Karis is great given you already have Coco. I do still think this Layla is good for Shadowmere, and we did see them pick it in game 1, so. But they might not have it built as a DPS, and we just saw it as obviously a rush strategy on a small map, but we will see. What else? Momo is still open. Is Momo good for either player? Not very good for Kinbum. Into a Tristan. Is it good for Shadowmere? It's better than you might think into an Estra, because you break a lot of her shield and then she does significantly reduced damage. It's okay into Pamina. It's not great. Like, it does good damage to the Pamina, but it's you can just get taunted. Some players like to pick a combo in this map. I don't think it's particularly great. Oh, August is still open. Yeah, I could definitely see. Okay, so I would expect then that Shadowmere is actually lining up for an August pick on 5, which means that Kinbum's pick of August here is actually fantastic. Because I think it counters that line. Counters that line from Shadowmere. I think the Gloria pick on 4 actually does kind of indicate an August pick on 5. So if that is the case, Kinbum able to spot it and counterpick the August away, and then does go for that Layla on 5. All right, so we do see some expected picks out from our players here in game 2, and some unexpected picks as well. I think both players playing it quite well, and they both have fairly potent teams as we go into game 2 with Kinbum up 1-0. So we're gonna hop over to the battle phase, and if we go to game 3, we'll see you after game 2. All right, hello everyone. This is game 2 of the finals of the John Convallaria Invitational between Shadowmere on the left side and KWB Kinbum on the right side. This is a recording that I'm doing after the finals are concluded. I messed up my recording a little bit during the match itself, so we're just going to watch the replay. It does actually mean that I can do commentary over the battle, as opposed to having to just do the video, given the way the recording on my phone works. But we will get started here. Check out gear once we are able to. So we do see a fairly balanced pick ban from both players, and I'll go ahead and check out gear. Nothing super remarkable. We do see unique coat on Gloria, which is a little bit unusual. Hermit as well, so with physical damage reduction resonance, this is a fully defensive Gloria here. Important to note on this Layla is the Nocturnal Glow, the SP Saf signature, which has the ability to dispel debuffs when Layla casts support skills on her teammates. We do also see Chariot on the Gloria, And we'll check out what we have here. It looks like Great Shield on the Agatha, Newborn Blade pretty normal, and then Hermit and physical damage reduction on the Agatha, all hopefully to be able to survive an Estra attack here. We do see pretty normal set of gear on Tristan, Gale Sword, Berserk Incense, Justice, and Sword. And then Coco, pretty normal, has Old Scrolls of August, but also has Empress Tarot. And then on Kinbum's side, we see a pretty normal set of gear here, Chariot on the Estra. I believe it is Chariot on August as well, yep, with Tuning Hammer. We see Sig on, excuse me, Saf with August Scroll, pretty normal Fortune, Tarot there. Pamina Sig, Shield of Justice, Chariot as well on the Pamina, and then finally Focus Wand and World. So worth noting, something I'm sure I talked about in Pick Ban, but this is a pretty good draft for both players. We see Inanna plus Pamina August. Oh goodness, I should have. Okay, Pamina, Inanna August Estra. So a lot of engaged threats here possible on Kinbum's side, but then we also see some good cleanse out of Coco. We see Tristan, Gloria able to have good threat here as well, plus Agatha, and then Layla potentially putting up Cloud Slash to prevent an Estra engage. Sort of the win condition we see on Kinbum's side is going to be getting in here with a Pamina CC and kind of locking down Shadowmere's team. But Shadowmere has expected this and put the Dispel effect on Layla, so we'll see if that comes into play and who is able to get their game plan off most effectively. So an early Cook comes out of Coco, potentially putting up a Dispel. The Pamina does opt to go in after Inana. The rest of the units here just to be posturing and positioning. I am from time zone speed, but it appears to be incredibly fast. So we do see the act again come out on the Inanna, acting on Pamina here. Not able to see her engage range, but she should have 5 tiles. She is sped up as well, so she's faster than all of Shadowmere's units. So she will have first turn in this next round and is able to hit 4 units. So we see all of these units get hit, but worth noting that the cook, the breakfast is on Layla, and Layla is able to then dispel all of the debuffs and all of the taunt effects from this Pamina. So the engage does not go I was hoping, and then Tristan with the teleport forward does have the engage to get in here. She will be able to get some damage down, and we see some really big crits. Kinbum's entire team. So he has the Pamina and the Estra left here. Can potentially get something done, but has a lot of pauses left. And all the damage reduction we saw earlier will prevent Estra here from getting multiple kills, especially on this Gloria here. Has a lot of tools left, Shadowmere in. We'll just be able to take out the Agatha. With the Agatha, leaving just the Estra alive and not having lost any units himself. So, really well drafted by both players, but I think Shadowmere got the better of Kinbum in the gearing phase. And we do see Shadowmere picking up game 2. We are getting into game 3 here. I had a bit of an issue with my recording for game 2, but I will figure that out after the fact. Some really impressive play shown by Shadowmere in Game 2. It was a close pick ban, but I think Shadowmere definitely able to eke out a big advantage in the battle itself. We will see Kinbum getting the choice here of the map and speed token. So they are opting for mines. And Shadowmere will have, as a result, pick of the order for pick ban. I think most players have opted to choose first pick and ban, but I don't know that it's necessarily deterministic whether first pick and ban is better or not. I think it kind of depends on the map, it depends on your opponent. But we will see what Shadowmere opts to do here. Yeah, I'm just excited that we're going to Game 3, though. Game 1 definitely could have been in Shadowmere's favor. I think he made some mistakes in the actual battle, but both players pick banning well in Game 1 on a particularly tricky map. So we do see a much more even pick ban in Game 2, and Shadowmere able to leverage an advantage to take Game 2 and bring us to Game 3. So it's all tied up. And whichever player is able to win Game 3 here will take the finals of the very first John Convallaria Invitational. Trying out a brand new format here. I think it's definitely introduced some interesting play on both the pick ban and the actual battles for all the players. Some adjustments will probably be made if we revisit this format in the future, but I'm overall quite happy with how it's played out. So very, very excited and happy that we go to Game 3 here, regardless of who is able to pick up the win. Both players showcasing a lot of skill, not only in this match itself, but also the event as a whole. So I very much appreciate how much people have shown up, and the skill level showcased has been very high, which I'm very glad for. See our audience waiting in the voice channel for Game 3 to get underway, and will very likely be a little bit of time as they excuse me, as our players get onto pick ban here, but we'll check out what our audience is saying. All right. Yeah, I think that this pick ban is going to be interesting. Some units likely to be given higher priority than they were given in the first two drafts based on the maps. I do think that Kambe is likely to be one of those units. Simona is a lot better on this map than she is on the other maps, although she is quite good on Scorching Hills. And we didn't see her, although that is a map that our players unlikely to have a ton of experience on. So I do think that we will very likely see a Kambe either picked or banned by one of our players on this map. SP Rabia was already banned, so she is another unit that is good on every map, but particularly useful on this map, from her engage range and also just her knockoff capability. Luvada is another unit that I think we could see highly prioritized on this map, especially given her teleport skill is not banned for this event. So we could definitely see Luvada given high priority on this map. Kinbum deciding what they want to ban first here. I think it is likely to be Tyre or Inanna, but based on Shadowmere's ban of SV Rabia, you are giving Inanna or Tyre over to your opponent, depending on which you choose to ban. Shadowmere may not choose to pick the remaining unit, but you have to be very aware. So chooses to ban Tristan instead, which means that whatever Shadowmere doesn't pick here, Kinbum will have remaining, which I think is wise. I think that both Tyre and Inanna are equally potent. I think it's pretty player dependent, it's map dependent, and it's composition dependent. So two of the premier Inanna picks are banned away here. So we may not see priority given to Inanna here. I mean, she's still incredibly good. The act again is always useful. And we do see Shadowmere pick up a Conve. So one of the strengths in picking this here is that, yes, Inanna, Tyre are still open, and yes, Kinbum does have pick 1 and 2, but choosing to pick both of the premier supports as your pick 1 and 2 is a little dangerous. The supports need units to support, so you kind of put yourself in a bit of a pickle if you're only picking the supports. Obviously, there are plenty of units, and this is an open roster format, so we'll always have some units to pick up to support, but it's a little tricky. So I think we see some really skilled play from both players here in pick ban, not picking or banning themselves into a corner, and kind of forcing their opponent to leave them something open to pick. Right. If Kinbum picks both Tyre and Inanna, obviously that is not optimal. If he picks just one, then Shadowmere has the other still remaining to pick up if he wants to. But yeah, I think some really skilled pick ban showcased by both players here. Very excited to see for what will be the final game of our event. So what do I think Kinbum is going to do here? I think he is likely to pick up either Tyre or Inanna. And yeah, there are a lot of really potent units that he could look for here. I think Tyre Luvada would be quite interesting. There are definitely some combos that you could do with Tyre plus a number of units on your team to get in on turn 1. Something like Tyre, Luvada Gloria, and potentially Homa, or Saf, just like getting the barrel to the other side of the map, buffing up your Luvada and Inanna Agata. Okay, so we do see one of those premier supports picked up here. Sorry, I was a little stun-locked for a moment. I was talking about Luvada, and then we don't see Luvada, which is totally fair. You have to have a pretty invested Luvada to be able to go in on turn 1. I don't think that we won't see Prio on this unit because of that, but definitely maybe dropped a bit lower. So I do expect Shadowmere to pick up Tyre in either this 2 or 3 slot. But there are a lot of different directions that these players could go with these drafts. I do expect Tair just being a premium support here, and given the size of this map, is able to make a lot of plays happen with Tair, so I would not be surprised to see that. Do I think he's going to pick up Luvada? I don't think it's likely. I think if we knew these players had them at 5-star, which neither of these players probably do, given that she hasn't been out for that long, we could see early Luvada rotation, but I don't think that we'll see it until 4-5 for these players. Yeah, does it go for Tair Pamina here? Unit. Pamina, a unit that we've seen both players make good use of. You know, in game 2, Kinbum's Pamina engage potentially could have been game-winning. Shadowmere able to find a really good angle to set up a full team cleanse, a guaranteed cleanse for his team with Coco and Layla. But Pamina, always a potent unit, always needs to be respected, especially when your opponent doesn't have great cleanse options. And Tair is a really good option for cleansing Pamina control generally, and Inanna is usually not. She can't really afford often to bring a lot of cleanse, and we do generally see players bringing things like a focus wand to get extra range on Princess Prayer, and World to lower the cooldown of Prayer so that it's every other turn. Obviously, players do have an option to change their gear before the match, so we could potentially see a gear switch on the Inanna to give her more cleanse. But even with cleanse gear, she is less likely to be able to cleanse before the taunted units go, just given her speed. So it's definitely, she's just in a difficult position to cleanse Pamina taunt anyways, so don't necessarily think that we will see Kinbum going for that, but it is a possibility, either swapping out Focus Wand or the World Tarot. What do I think Kinbum picks on 3 here? We do see Tristan, SP Ravia already banned out. Both premier supports picked. I think Estra is reasonable here. I think Homa is reasonable here. We could see Luvada Prio. We could see Simona Prio. We could see, honestly, Karis Prio. It's not bad. We do know that Shadowmere likes Layla, so we could see Layla. Okay, opts to pick the Estra and ban the Layla. So fairly consistent with the picks and bans from what we've seen in game. Oh, Layla. That is not her name. And then Shadowmere will have his own ban. I think maybe a Homa here makes sense. I think Homa is probably the most reasonable ban, given your opponent has Agatha Estra. The move to being the most important here. And then Kinbum potentially would pick up SP Saf. Yeah, so Shadowmere bans Homa, as expected here. And then, here it is. I do think Kinbum could potentially pick SP Saf, just as a good pick with his Agatha Astra. You know, we obviously didn't see high prio on it in game 1, but did opt to pick it in game 2. So other than SP Saf, I'm trying to consider here. I think Shadowmere potentially could be looking at a Simona. Luvada I do think is interesting for both of these players. Again, I don't know if either of them like Luvada and would want to pick her, but Yeah, I think SB Saf here. And then if I'm Shadowmere, I'm maybe picking Simona Levada or Gloria or Layla, even. Actually, yeah, you just saw an Esther pick. Layla's pretty good here. So oh wait, no, sorry. Layla's banned. Okay, so not Layla. What else could we see here? Karis is always an option. We do know that Shadowmere likes the Coco, although there's not really any good Coco units. Kavari is still open, so I think either of these players actually definitely could pick a Kavari here. Kavari is not amazing into any of these units. I think that Kinbum is more likely to pick Kavari, if either player. But yeah, I'd say the selection of units here is likely something like Simona, Levada, Kavari, SP Saf, and we might see OG Saf priority, more likely from Kinbum. Momo's still open, always an option. Gloria, I think, is more likely to be picked by Shadowmere, if either player, and then Coco. Yeah. Kavari, SP Saf, Levada, Coco, Gloria, Karis, and Momo. I think the most likely, and OG Saf. Most likely set of units that we will see here. If I had to narrow it down, what do I think? I think Kinbum would pick SP Saf here, and then I think Shadowmere would pick Gloria Simona, maybe? And then Kinbum would pick OG Saf. That's my final 4-unit prediction. It's going to be immediately proven wrong, but it's possible. So we will see. We will see. But yeah, this has been a great series, and regardless of who's able to take this game, I'm glad again we went to game 3, and that they've all been a showcase of incredible skill, both in pick ban and in the battles. Obviously, mistakes are made, but we can't all play perfectly every game, and so mistakes are to be expected. Dun dun dun. I love seeing both players typing and neither of them sending any messages. Obviously, no pressure here on the speed. We, again, did not set any timers for pick ban, at least in this initial event. But players obviously giving a lot of thought into what they can do and what their opponent can do. These games definitely decided as much in the battle as they are in pick ban, so completely understandable. Picks Kavari. Yep. Not the unit that I expected, but one of the units that we did expect. Picks Kavari. Alright. I do think Gloria is likely to come out of Shadowmere here. And then maybe Simona. I mean, it's hard to say. You could also denial pick SP Saf. Is able to buff up the Pamina in multiple ways. You know, her defensive buffs and her attack buffs more relevant on Pamina than other units. Could carry leader aura, even though you're kind of pressed for slots, for skill slots. Yeah. I know that Shadowmere likes Gloria, so wouldn't be terribly surprised to see a Gloria here. Doesn't necessarily need Gloria with Tair. She's got a bit of role overlap with the energy buffing and the movement buffing of Tair, but Tair's movement obviously single target, where Gloria's is not. And when you give the movement buff on Tair, obviously you're committing to speed up, which, while speed up is itself generally quite good, it can actually be a downside if you want your opponent to move before your units so that your unit can go and then you speed them up. But we will see. We will see what Shadowmere opts for. Coco and OG Saf, okay? So I do expect maybe an SP Saf here for Kinbum. This is kind of a denial pick on the OG Saf. It's funny that we say OG Saf because we could just say Saf, right? But you know, it's just something that we've kind of adopted as seeing SP Saf more often. But we do see Shadowmere rounding out their team: Akambe, Tair, Pamina, Coco, and Safia. Inanna, Agata, Estra, Kavare. It's interesting. It's very, very interesting. I think Saf is a good counterpick into Agata. It's kind of an old school Agata counterpick. I don't know how well she does into Estra. I think she probably can kill Estra, but has to be mindful of her reaction. It's a little bit dubious. Yeah. I think it's definitely an interesting final set of units. Not necessarily sure what Coco's doing here. I don't know what she's cleansing. And she's not really good into Agata. She doesn't do anything into Estra. At least in terms of assist. Her damage and damage reduction is kind of overlapping with Tair. And the healing as well. Yeah, I'm not super sure what the Coco is doing. I mean, she is giving cooldown reduction. She's a strong support. She's good for extended games. She's kind of a late game monster with her mushroom. Never a bad unit, but I don't necessarily know what Shadowmere is planning with the Coco here. Kinbum, their final pick. What are they kind of missing? Movement, honestly. Yeah, they really don't have good movement options. We see a lot of really good movement for Shadowmere, and Kinbum has some long-range units and Inanna act again, obviously, but doesn't have any good kind of literal movement buff options or displacement effects. So Gloria might be a good pickup here, just for that. What else might be interesting? Yeah, I mean, SP Saf can roll into the movement buff if you're lucky and you have Sig on her. Simona is not a terrible option. Momo. I think Momo is okay here. I think Karis is actually a great pick. I think Karis is a pretty darn good pick here. Not incredible, but I do like a Karis. And then I think Lovato would be... I mean, I think Lovato's just really good on this map, and both players opting to not prioritize the Lovato, but I do think that with her teleport, she is very threatening, especially on this map. But we see Kinbum taking their time, thinking about what they want their final pick to be. Final pick of the final game of our final match. If I had to take a wild guess, it would be SP Saf, I think. It's probably just like the safest option. I think if you're trying to get crazy, probably Luvata. But yeah, SPSoft offers you kill pressure. She offers you defensive buffs here. She can cleanse a Pamina engage when you really don't have good cleanse for a Pamina engage. That's also fair, actually. I think Shadowmere maybe was denial picking Coco. Yeah, that is probably true. I think I wasn't giving credit to that. Is that Coco is a good pickup if you're Kinbum here to cleanse the Pamina engage, and Shadowmere picking Coco means that Kinbum can't pick it. So yeah, I think that is actually pretty likely. Picks Karis. All right, we do see Karis as a counter pick to Pamina. We'll be able to negate a combo damage, although a combo nowadays is usually looking to just push people off the map, but good into the Pamina taunt, and also potential late game Coco sleeps. So yeah, I think that this should be a good final game between our players. And as we get into game 3, our players will set up their gear, and I will meet you over in the battle.
Wow.